You don't need to be a tech person to care about cybersecurity.
It's more than just about protecting networks, it's ultimately about protecting people.
The human factor in cybersecurity often gets neglected, and we are here to bridge that gap.
Are you ready to get lost in Siberia with us? Welcome back to another episode of Lost in Siberia. We're your hosts, Annie May.
And Annika. Our guest today is Stephen Endicott, who recently shared a powerful personal story about almost being caught in a crypto impersonation scam. And before we start, I want to thank Stephen for being here and for his honesty in sharing this experience. It is not easy to speak publicly about a moment like this, particularly with the rampant cybercrime victim blaming culture eager to judge and shame. By sharing your stories with our scam stories, you are bringing all of us closer to opening up about how prominent scams are and allowing people to learn rather than hide and become a potential victim again. And saying this, hi, Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Cool. Thanks. It's good to be here.
I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us about your background and essentially how you ended up reporting the story about the scam to our scam stories, which is run by Wadzi, who we also had on this podcast last year.
So I work in the rail industry, probably in what you call a tech adjacent role. So not directly in an IT department, but still like relatively techy. My story, I suppose, in this case, starts back in 2021. I started a new employer. Some colleagues at the time were getting into the crypto hype, and I opened up an account on crypto.com and put a little bit of money in there. It hasn't done particularly well since that time. So even if the scammers had got it, they wouldn't have had a whole lot. But yeah, I suppose where the story begins is a couple of weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, I got a phone call from a United States number and answered it. And the line was a little bit dodgy, but not too bad, similar to what I've had from other US calls. And they said they were from the crypto.com security team and that there'd been suspicious activity on my account. They then directed me to a website that looks like the crypto.com website, but the URL was slightly different. Instead of being a subdomain, it had a hyphen. So in hindsight, I should have known it was a completely different domain, but in the moment with the pressure they were applying, I still went to it. Everything looked okay. It had your Cloudflare, are you a human checks, had an SSL certificate, all of that sort of stuff. Once I put in my, I think it was email address, it popped up with a list of the suspicious activities he was telling me about. So people trying to log into the account from Virginia. And I said on the phone, yep, that definitely wasn't me, like something's up. On the next couple of pages of the website is where I probably made the biggest mistakes. So putting in the PIN to the app and also putting in the two-factor authentication code from the two-factor authentication app. Normally, I should know better. I know how these systems work. I know, what they're there for. But the pressure they were putting me under and the fact I wasn't actually at work at the time, I was making a cake at home. I wasn't really thinking about cybersecurity and best practice. And so I just kind of went along with it. I did start to get suspicious when they started making me put in this information. And I was quickly Googling in the background like the URL they'd given me plus the crypto.com security practices, and eventually found a Reddit thread where someone from the crypto.com security team basically said, like, we will never call you. Like, we will always message you through the app or send you an email telling you to log into your account. The person on the phone kept applying pressure, and I think he was getting a bit suspicious because I was taking longer and longer to do each step because I was looking at these things in the background. Eventually, after reading that, I kind of realized there was probably a 99% chance I was getting scammed. So at that point, I hung up on him. I was able to log back into my crypto.com account, and I could see there had been an unauthorized entry, but I was able to lock the account out. And luckily, they didn't get anything this time. And I also reported to the crypto.com security team as well, because they wanted to know what URL it was coming from, phone number, all of those sort of things. Because, I'm assuming I'm not the first person. So, in hindsight, I definitely should have known better. And I think my biggest problem in this case was putting the actual two-factor authentication code into something that wasn't the app it was designed for. So I felt a bit stupid because I basically broken everything cybersecurity training over the last 10 years has told me not to do. But at least at the end, I suppose, I was lucky that I caught it at the last second and was able to block them getting more permanent access to my account and moving the remaining funds into their own wallet.
I think there's a couple of things there that were you're not really on your guard, right? It's Friday afternoon. You're ready for the weekend. You're baking a cake.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of cake was it, by the way?
Yeah.
It was an apple and pear cake, so at least the cakes turned out okay, which is good.
Oh, okay. You see, you still ended up making it. That's good. Yeah, and I've listened to the guy who runs. There's a podcast called Smashing Security, Graham Cluley, I think his name is. He nearly fell for a booking.com scam because he's a cybersecurity person, been in the industry for over 20 years kind of thing. You wouldn't expect a cybersecurity person to fall for a scam, but he was in the supermarket and he was buying an aubergine or something, and gets hit with an email or something, comes up, and he nearly ended up giving over all his bank information because they claimed that his original booking hadn't gone through, and said, oh, you need to go to this website to quickly put your booking details in again, otherwise your booking will be cancelled. So I think that's the thing, right? We get all this security awareness training whenever we start a new job, or might have to do it annually depending on your type of role, but despite all of that, we can still fall for these kinds of things. And I think that's something that often we forget. But what did the person actually say when they called you?
So they said they were from the crypto.com security team and talking about this unauthorized activity. So they mentioned the Virginia case, which then appeared in the website as well. And I said, yeah, absolutely not. I live in Australia. We even joked a bit about how there was a bit of lag in the phone call because we're on opposite sides of the world. And then he directed me to the website from that point and basically was talking me through every step to complete and what I needed to put into the website, which looked relatively unique. And he was pressuring me to try and do it quite quickly as well. And, the old sense of urgency to try and push it through, which, I think in this case, I did fall a bit for that sense of urgency that he was doing. But his English was also quite good. So I'm still not 100% sure if I was actually speaking to someone American or, with AI these days and voice generation, it could have been anywhere in the world. And the software's just got that good.
It could have been the US as well. I think the US actually has a huge percentage of cyber scammers in it. It's one of the highest percentages in the world. But that's the thing, right? Even with phishing emails nowadays, they're so good. It really takes you off guard. If you are looking for those particular clues, like proficiency in certain language or grammar and so on, it's becoming less and less of a sign. But you've done the right thing in looking for the domain. So I know you're saying and referring to yourself in a lot of derogatory terms, saying you should have known better. But I don't know if it helps to know, and you probably know this already, but just between January and March, there are about 17,000 reports of phishing scams, and 3/4 of those are connected to cryptocurrency. These are the people who lost money from those scams. From your case, luckily, nothing bad has happened. You haven't lost anything. So these are the people who actually lost it. And so how many more cases are there that haven't, reported at all because they haven't lost anything? And that's a lot of people. And as you said anyway, right, a lot of people of them are cyber people. I think cyber people are actually very susceptible to that because we have this thinking and or tech adjacent and so on. We have this thinking that, oh, I know.
Yeah, I think you're immune from these sort of things. I think I pride myself on never having been caught out by one of the work test phishing emails. So I thought it was pretty good at spotting a scam, but yeah.
I have friends who work in cybersecurity and they've nearly clicked on one of the work phishing that is meant to look like it's coming from another company or whatever. My friend nearly fell for one because his company sent one out saying, oh, first 5 people who sign up for this get a free year subscription to ChatGPT. And so it was just after ChatGPT had really started taking off. And it was quite expensive, I think, when it initially launched. I don't know if the price has gone down, to be honest. I don't use ChatGPT anymore. But he was like, oh my God, amazing. ChatGPT subscription, that's usually really expensive. And, something that you can actually use for work, I guess, to help you with certain tasks. So, what was the initial, you mentioned obviously that you started looking online and that you were starting to see a few signs that something seemed a little sus, but what was the first initial thing that really kind of sparked your suspicions that this might not be legitimate?
Pretty early on, they told me to delete the application off my phone because they thought that was the attack vector. And I was like, that doesn't quite seem right to have it at that level, like someone to have penetrated the Google App Store and uploaded a artificial one. I know there's supply chain tax out there, but I think these sort of applications isn't really where that is happening. And then once they started asking me to enter my personal details into the website, and that is where I started cottoning on. I was starting to Google, but I was still following the bouncing ball that he was telling me to go through while I was doing it in the background. It probably didn't help. I was doing it all on my phone as well. My wife was actually working from home that day and in the home office, so I didn't want to go in and disturb her. So trying to like speak to this person on speakerphone while going through the actions that he was telling me to do on the website he'd linked me to, while then also in a different tab trying to see if this was the way the Crypto.com deals with security incidents, made it just a bit more difficult. And I suppose lots of bit of situational awareness, is having to like swap between things and keep holding off the guy on the phone long enough to let me keep doing it.
This is very interesting because we have actually been discussing this week, because I have experience in running cybersecurity awareness programs. And I think once you run them long enough and you teach people to recognize certain, as you said, domains and subdomains and certain other factors, it's really interesting what groups remain in terms of, like, let's say, repeated offenders or the people who continuously keep pressing on phishing links and so on, even though they have been given information that this is a phishing link. But a really interesting fact about it is that it's done through mobile phones. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
I think of it.
I won't use mobile phone like for work emails, like type back or open it.
Yeah, because I think if this had been like an email instead of a phone call, like I probably would have cottoned on to like the URL and stuff a lot earlier as well. But it was because it was someone physically speaking to me on the other end of the line and pressuring me through it. I suppose just wanted to do what I thought was right based on what they were telling me had happened.
Were there any other tactics that they used apart from urgency to really make you feel like you needed to either make you think that it was real or to make you feel like you needed to do it at that very moment?
Yeah, so they asked me like other questions that probably actually weren't that relevant, but the sort of thing you'd ask if you were a cybersecurity analyst in a SOC. So like, when was the last time you made transactions in your account? Like, have you had any suspicious transactions? Have you given anyone else access to your account? Those sort of things, which don't really probably play any part in the scam, but it's the sort of thing you ask if you want to seem like a legitimate person from a security team. And towards the end, though, and the part where I got really suspicious, like they asked me to download a different crypto app, and I was like, oh, they're almost definitely going to be trying to get me to transfer across to that wallet. And that's the part where I finally did hang up on them.
I'm interested that they asked you to delete the app in the first place too. I guess that's why they got you to delete it, right? And then you just said they wanted you to download a different app. Yeah, it just seems.
I think it was just to add to that sense of urgency. I need to do something right now. And the first thing is deleting an app, because there was something tangible I could do then and there and feel like I was already doing a first step.
Equivalent of like, turn everything off. Take everything out.
Unplug everything.
Correct. I think that's fantastic. But I also wanted to mention what's very interesting is that you said you were joking with them about how you're not in Virginia and how like far away you are, and it seems like there was some kind of a bond that essentially they created with you, which was like that emotional safety. So you're at home, you're baking an apple and pear cake. It sounds lovely. Your wife is working from home. Things are going well, and also like at work, you would be looking for this kind of things. Well, not everyone, but you will be more alert being at work, right? And then you are here, you are in your safe zone, and then they are also joking with you, even though like it's kind of scary and somebody broke into your account, but you are joking with them about that as well. Did you feel like they were maybe trying to get to you more emotionally and make you feel a bit both safe and alert at the same time?
Yeah, they're definitely building a little bit of rapport, but they weren't like going too far down that path of small talk and things like that. But while applying pressure to me, they didn't rush me too much, especially at the start, and just let me go through the steps and like had those little bits of small talk along the way about what was going on and those extra bits of filler information to make it sound like they knew what was going on with my account and check how I was going in that.
Do you think it was by chance that they contacted you because you actually did have an account with Crypto.com, correct? So do you think it was per chance that they happened to contact you, or do you think that they've somehow worked out that you actually legitimately do have an account with this company?
I think they probably legitimately worked out I do. I haven't gone back and checked if they've reported any like data breaches, but I've probably got a big enough online presence that like someone could dig up my phone number and link it to my email address and that to be able to do it, because that's really the two bits of information they had about me was a email address and a phone number. And my presence online is probably big enough to unfortunately facilitate, like if you got one, you can get the other, and then you can call up pretending like you are from one of these legitimate companies.
You said you've changed the password, right, on your account, which is very good as one of the first things, because they have taken your code from your MFA Authenticator app.
I mean, someone getting access to my email would be catastrophic, and I think most people these days probably don't realize how bad it would be if someone did get access to your email, because then you can go to a reset password button on any other service they use. And unless they've got 2FA set up as well, like, yeah, you can get access to so much through it.
Have you also considered to change the email as well that you log into the account, the crypto account?
I was probably just going to close down the crypto account. My wife wasn't particularly happy about the negative performance in the last 4 or 5 years of crypto. So she'd be as happy as anything to have this as our chance to get out of that experiment.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually how you feel about crypto after this scam attempt. I guess it sounds like you don't really want to be involved with it anyway, but do you invest in general, like on the stock market and stuff, or?
Yeah, but generally more just like exchange traded funds and things like that these days.
Yeah.
The crypto really was just the guys at work were doing it. It was interesting technology. I'm keen to keep up to date with like new technologies and things. I know some people that back in the day made like a reasonable amount of money off it, but that was like the mid 20 teens when there actually was money to be made. So yeah, I always kept an eye on it, but logged in every couple of weeks just to like see what was going on and stuff. And especially if it like come up in the news, like log in again and just see what the performance had been. And yeah, it's been a roller coaster, but it wasn't a life-changing sum of money or anything in there. It was just more to test it out and see what this crypto thing was all about. Yeah, like I never even got into like having like those credit cards and stuff linked to crypto or anything. So basically I didn't do anything with it in the end of the day.
How did Wudsy end up getting in contact with you to feature you in our scam stories?
Through one of my friends, through my university networking group. So I went to the University of Queensland, but moved over here, and there's an alumni group over here. And yeah, one of the women now works in like a cybersecurity tech related field. So she put me in contact, and that's how I got across.
What prompted you to share it? Because as we have said in the beginning, not everyone does.
I think I'm a good example. Most people know me as someone reasonably up to date with like technology and a reasonably big user of technology. So I kind of just wanted to, do the public service announcement that even people like me aren't immune to this and more or less fall for it. I suppose at least mine ended up having a, happy ending where at least I caught it at the very last second. So I'm probably a good example where I more or less did fall for a crypto scam. I was putting all my details and stuff in. I was just lucky that I managed to get into the account and lock it out before they could actually do anything. But at the end of the day, at least I didn't lose any money or anything either. So I was happy at least about that. And yeah, just wanted to let my other techie friends know that keep an eye out for these sort of things. You're not immune just because you know how the technology works, and even if you know what to look for, it can still happen. What
was the reception from your technology and your techie friends?
Yeah, reasonably good. I think a lot of my friends, the same like me, they're like, this is the sort of stuff that happens to our parents. It's not the sort of stuff that happens to us. So I think everyone was happy that I didn't lose money, especially my wife. But also, I think it probably was a good example that even people who know how these things work can still like have it happen to them.
How did you feel when you had hung up on the call? What kind of emotions did you have?
Pretty stupid, especially because immediately afterwards I was like, why did I go putting like the 2FA code into some random website? Like, I should only ever really go into the application that it's designed for. Yeah, stupid that I didn't catch it earlier as well. Also relieved that I did get to it at the end, and like the adrenaline was racing there when I was going in and speaking to the actual crypto.com security team through the app, and then blocking the account out just to stop anything happening immediately. I actually haven't reactivated it yet because there's a whole process now I need to go through to re-authenticate who I am with them, and that'll probably be the end of my crypto journey at that point. And I'll be thankful I'm not in crypto anymore.
Did this feeling change now that you have been through the sharing process and opening up?
I think I'm a bit more thankful that at least I did catch it, because someone less tech savvy, and once again I always go back to like thinking about my parents, because they're probably not that they have crypto, but like a prime demographic for this sort of thing. Like they wouldn't have known what to have looked for at all. They probably wouldn't have started getting suspicious in the first place. So I suppose all those cybersecurity awareness sessions at work over the last 10 years paid off a little bit, and at least I did catch it right before the end. So yeah, thankful that it wasn't worse than it was in this case.
Do you have any advice for people who also might have money invested in crypto, what they should be looking out for? Because I think someone tried to call me once claiming to be from one of the big crypto companies. I can't remember which one it was, but I don't have crypto, so I was just like, what is this? And I've got that screening thing on my phone, so most people, I don't answer. I basically have a rule where I don't answer calls from anyone that I don't know. What's your advice, I guess?
I think like crypto is probably one of the more questionable investment opportunities, and given the international nature of it as well, probably one of the less regulated ones. So I think you just need to be careful every time you're dealing with it or dealing with any of the providers who work in crypto, whether that be an exchange or someone who accepts it as payment, all of those sort of things. But more importantly, like if someone calls you, don't give in to the pressure, like stop and think about it. The person from a security team is unlikely to be calling you with something that you can act on in like the matter of seconds. Take the time to have a think about what they're actually asking you to do before you just like start blindly following their instructions.
I also need to add, which is very interesting, but when we were doing the preparation for the scam compounds talk, there is a lot of data now that showcases that we think about cyber scams as like the older demographic will definitely fall for them and so on. But there has been quite a lot of people, I guess, in our age bracket that have been falling for those. Crypto is one of the reasons. But another reason as well is literally, I guess, like the economic environment and the situation as well, and the risk, because I guess like millennials compared to like Gen X and boomers and so on, and where we're situated economically, does create that push for like higher risk to try and get more funds, which like people from the older generation, I'm generalizing a lot in here, but they don't have the same push. And so it may be another thing that gives people that false sense of security. So having you come out and saying, no, actually, like it does happen to everyone. I don't answer anything on my phone, but I was driving and I had a call come through, and it comes through my car, right? So through the car, the speaker system, and it seemed like a landline number and so on. And I think I was expecting a call as well from someone similar to this number. And then I answered, and it was like, this is this bank, and we have received a request to, I think it was like, to spend like $900 on a gift card. And I was like, what? Yeah, that's quite unreasonable. But because I was in a different environment, so much of your training is literally connected to your body, your physical senses, and so on. It doesn't necessarily translate when you change an environment. So if you are in your kitchen, if you're doing something else, it doesn't necessarily translate. And so it's really good to have this awareness here that it does happen to everyone, and it's not really about what you know. It's about sometimes just the state that you're at. Yeah.
And in my case, the phone number it came from was a +1 number. So it looks like a legitimate US number. And in my day job, there's a company that we use based in the States who call like us for various when monitoring alarms go off. So I'm not unused to answering calls from the States, and the person on the other end sounded like one of those sort of operators I'd speak to from that other company. And like the lag and the quality of the call was all similar to what I expect when I am speaking to people in the States like that. So I think that also threw me off guard a bit, because when I first saw the number, I assumed it was just that monitoring company calling me and to notify me of an alert.
We call this in criminology like a routine activity theory, something that you consistently do. You continuously like take one path to go to your local shops every day. You do the same thing. And if there is enough motivation, let's say take your wallet, and if nobody is watching, like let's say it's in the dark and there is like no lights on and so on, then it's very likely that you will be robbed, right? I don't know. It's a theory. Theories are meant to be disproved, but it's a very interesting thing to apply it to these types of scams, because so you're saying like this is a very normal thing for me to do. It's a routine activity. We have a really motivated offender there because somebody fell for this, and this is why it worked. And when I did a bit of reading on crypto scams and so on, it seemed like this is one of the tactics that they're using. They're making you put the 2FA authentication code into another platform. This is one of the methods, and it worked with someone else. But did it feel this way, like just a normal day, and then nothing was different, and then suddenly?
Yeah, because I get calls from the US on a regular basis. So like you guys, I probably wouldn't have answered normally a random international number calling me, but because it looks like the numbers I'm used to receiving calls from, it's probably them. Even though I was on leave, like I've still been getting calls from them just because we didn't update the monitoring system in the background for them to call someone else. So like I'd still been used to getting those calls. Apart from that, it was just a regular Friday afternoon. So I wasn't really thinking about cybersecurity or anything.
Going back to the website, you mentioned there were a few key things that made you suspicious that it wasn't the actual website. Do you want to just break down what the key things that you noticed were that maybe other people, they might not have a tech background, they might not know what to look for?
Yeah, so the big one was probably the URL. So the URL they sent me to was content-crypto.com, whereas like content.crypto.com would have been a more legitimate URL for them. The website itself, they've like copied the actual like HTML and CSS, so it looked like basically identical. The fact they had like regular Cloudflare verification, REQM, and that sort of thing tripped me up a bit as well. But down the footer of the page, the copyright notice only went to like 2025. And I went to the actual crypto.com site and had a look at the footer there, like while I was, rapidly Googling to try and see if this was legit. And that footer had been updated to 2026. And I was like, if you're doing a website, you'd almost definitely just have the same component across like all your platforms and stuff. So I know it's a relatively small thing, but yeah, that was one of the things that made me think like, it probably wasn't actually the crypto.com website.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting that you picked that up, because that's such a small thing to see at the bottom of a website. I don't think the average person would notice that, and especially because like 2025 and 2026 look so similar too, as numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I did also try having a look at like the certificate as well, but A, it's a bit difficult in the browser, and B, at the end of the day, an SSL certificate just encrypts your traffic. Like anyone can get one these days. Like I've got one in 5 minutes before through Cloudflare for free. It's not a perfect way to check if a website actually is who they say they are, because it's so easy to get one. I think I was also impressed they had such a legitimate looking domain. Like, if this was coming through an email, you probably have like a random Cyrillic character or something because your like URL link, but because they had to like verbally get me to type it in, like I was impressed that actually managed to get a URL that looks so close to crypto.com. And hopefully that's the sort of thing that the crypto.com actual security team is like looking out for, is people registering fake URLs that could be easily mistaken for theirs, because that's a interesting attack vector, I suppose. And I thought one that more broadly would kind of worked out, but I suppose it's so easy to set something up these days. If the URL is available, just register it, and you might only have a couple of weeks until it gets taken down, but you still got a couple of weeks to use as your attack vector.
It's very interesting where the liability lies as well. And that's the thing with crypto, like that's it. Like if you did transfer the money to them, it would be very difficult to attribute it and then get it back, compared to normal kind of banking scams and so on, where you do have a little bit more time until it goes into a cryptocurrency or money laundering scheme somewhere. Something that's popped into my mind, but how difficult it is to say that it's their liability to check if somebody is using their domains. I do wonder what they would say to that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's their liability, but I thought that would be like, a simple sort of check you could do, because you don't want people impersonating your company no matter what. If things look suspicious because someone else is registered a very similar to name, even if it's not from a cybersecurity point of view, you also probably, just from an IP point of view, don't want to have other people potentially stealing your IP or copying it.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that you mentioned that you used Reddit and you found threads where people were talking about how, did you say other people had had a similar experience in terms of experiencing this scam? Yeah, because I think that's something I've always done too. If something's seen sus or someone sent me something a bit weird, the first thing I usually do is try and go on Reddit and see if other people have been talking about this. One I found recently was being asked to reset my Instagram password when I hadn't asked to reset it. I've gotten that one quite a few times now, actually. But I went online, looked on Reddit, saw that there were hundreds of other people saying, oh, if you didn't request the reset, then don't reset your password and don't click on that link. I think that's a key thing for people to be mindful of, right? If something comes at you out of the blue and you just think, oh, I didn't ask for that, just take a few moments to do a quick Google search and see if this is a legitimate thing or not. Because I think, unfortunately, if people are in a rush, they'll just go, oh, okay, yeah, I better do that now, and they think that they're doing the right thing by changing their password. But yeah, unfortunately, the scammers are using those tactics against us as well. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
It's all about just the social engineering, the emotional factor of it. From their perspective, they don't even need to try this hard, right? It's more about the quantity of people they're trying to target. Well, especially if it's AI, like if it was just a voice generated by AI, so it's a matter of numbers. It's such a shame that it all falls down onto people to protect themselves, and then we can report and make sure that you either go on Reddit or we go on our scam stories, or on the podcast here, or you just continuously spread the message around the fact that it's very, very common. It happens to a lot of people.
I think especially as you said, with our demographic, we're probably a bit more digital natives as well. So there's a lot more, applications and things we've signed up for. And I'm probably guilty of password reuse and things as well. So, if any single site that I've ever signed up to gets attacked, like they've already got my email address, and then your list of email addresses, I suppose you just put them into like a site like crypto.com and see which ones hit, because even if only 1 in 1,000 people have it, you'll eventually find those couple of people, and that's your target list for the next quarter.
And then there is that whole, like, you're still feeling so ashamed about it, right? You're still feeling like you should have done better, which is that emotional toil like it takes on you to be caught in this. And a lot of people don't talk about it, they don't report it. Like, we know a lot of people that will never say it out loud, or their parents won't, their friends won't, and so on, which is so sad. And what did crypto.com say when you reported it? Did it come back to you?
So they basically just wanted to know the details of the attack vector and that as well. I don't think they were too concerned about particular, like, my incident. I think once I could tell them that no money had left my account or anything, that was kind of the end of it. But they were keen to get like what the phone number was, what the URL they sent me to was, and that sort of information. Because I'm assuming they do collate that just to see where the scams and stuff are happening, or at least I hope they do.
I feel like at least you were able to contact them and speak to them fairly quickly, because I feel like sometimes you try and get in contact with these companies and either they don't respond or they might take a week or a month to get back to you.
Yeah, you do have to go digging pretty hard through the settings of the app to actually like get onto someone, and then even harder to actually get into a live chat with someone instead of just being directed to an FAQ page. So
yeah,
it wasn't the easiest thing, but like as long as you followed the logical steps through the app, you did get there eventually.
I was going to say, do you want to provide some useful resources for people that might be looking to report a scam? But in any case, the first thing anyone should do is try and report it to the company that the person is purporting to be from. There's also Scam Watch, which I know people who work in government tend to know about, but outside of that, at least in my circles, most people have never heard of it. So that's a good.
They're doing such a good job. They're doing such incredible ads. Like, go onto their website. It's fantastic. They're trying really hard, but if it's a government agency and so on, it's very hard to get that widespread recognition that you can get through a industry or privatized.
Well, yeah, and also most people don't want to spend time on government websites if they can avoid it.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I just feel like as soon as it's like .gov.au, it's like, no thanks.
I think the bomb is the one exception to that.
Well, that's true actually, but all that. But don't even get me started on the weather. But
yeah, I had to visit the bomb a lot because it's obviously like I don't know if it's now, but it wasn't HTTPS a few months ago, and so we had to visit it a lot for our networking classes because it's one of like the most well-known sites that you can actually monitor traffic through because the Wireshark. So if you ever want to learn about networking, just download Wireshark and go to bomb. But yeah, if you don't like going to government websites, I'm so sorry that I have directed you, and now you are on Scam Watch, and you're like, oh God. Obviously, this is an Australian website, and I'm so sorry to bring up more government resources. But if you so have to, you can go to Report Cyber. Now, it's so much less fun than Scam Watch, and I have tried to navigate the systems of questionnaires, but I would say go to Report Cyber if your data has been encrypted, if you have a message on your computer saying, give us crypto, give us Bitcoins and so on. I would say go to Report Cyber. Now, there is some feedback, however, that we've seen in the research that, oh my God, you won't believe this. I have a suspected spam. Oh my God, no, you can't see it.
But it just came through?
Yeah, it just came through. Yeah, okay. So suspected spam. You see how it's red? It's Android.
Oh, someone's trying to call you, or is it? It's not a text.
Right now, from a suspected spam number. Wow. Okay. No, I'm not gonna take.
You should answer.
Live demonstration.
Live. Yeah, exactly. Here's what not to do.
They'll have no fun. No, yes. Sorry. I'm sorry. I got distracted. But yes, with Report Cyber, there are some reports that you won't hear back. And in general, it's very likely that you won't hear back, especially if nothing has happened to you. They're still figuring out all of the ways that they can get the private industry to come back to them and all the other ways of reporting, because digital space is massive and the criminal justice system is built a bit differently. If your identity or personal information has been compromised, you can go to ID Care to get advice on that as well. And I think, Stephen, what you've done is also very important, which is reset your credentials, reset your passwords, lock them out, and check that no transactions have been made on your account. Stop contact immediately, as you did, you hung up on them. And I guess you didn't need to contact your bank or anything like that. So that's good. It's good you never set up one of those credit cards that's connected to your credit card. Yeah. Anything you want to add, anyway? Any more fun websites that you go to?
No, I don't think there's any website. Well, I think like our scam stories is good. I think the best thing to do is to just raise that awareness, because a lot of people, yeah, like we said, are too scared to speak out, and oftentimes when they do, we've seen in the media how people are often ridiculed for reporting scams, and especially if it's a romance scam, where there was that woman recently who thought she was in love with some celebrity. I can't remember who it was, but she genuinely thought she was in a relationship with him, and everyone was just saying, oh, as if like that person would ever be interested in you, and all, all those kinds of comments and stuff. So I think it's just, it's just a matter of knowing that like anyone can fall for these types of scams, and most people tend to now use dating apps to meet people. And of course, the fact that it's online means there's going to be a lot of scammers on there, because there's scammers everywhere. Are there any sources that you have, Stephen?
Probably not directly. I know in more of a corporate context, it was like the Australian Cybersecurity Centre through the Australian Signals Directorate.
So I've like had a look at them.
I've had a look at some of their stuff before, more in a professional capacity, which was good to see what's going on in the industry and learn more about like how to protect the organisation I work for and the systems I look after.
You can also become a member. It doesn't have to be an organization. You can just your personal email address, and then you can get alerts from ASD for critical vulnerabilities and things like that. I would highly recommend for everyone to do that, because you never know. You might be using something that has been impacted, and they're very quick.
Okay, cool. Well, I think with that, we'll wrap it up. So thank you, Stephen, for coming on the podcast today and talking about your crypto scam experience.
No, thank you. Hopefully someone takes something away from it that, anyone's vulnerable, no matter how techie you think you are. Yeah,
for sure. And thank you everyone else for listening and getting lost in Siberia with us today.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Bye.